Of course, when I sit down to film, there's an airplane possibly flying over. Probably better than a lawnmower, right? Hello friends, welcome back to another video. We're doing a sit-down chatty Q&A video here. I've never done like a full-scale anything's on the table question and answer. I've done like an archivist archives Q&A and thought let's just do personal archivist, whatever you guys want to know from me. I've made some lemon tea to have and I've put my questions into categories. I put a community post up on my channel. If you guys don't get on YouTube on your phone, you probably don't know. I've been trying to post on there more often, whether I am asking you guys questions or trying to let you know if there's any updates or if there's gonna be delay in videos. Since I'm trying to stay off of Instagram, which is the only like other social media platform that I really used, I don't really go on there anymore, so community posts are the best place to keep up with me in terms of just non-video updates and things. So that is where the questions are pulled. First of all, thank you to everyone who submitted a question and for just being interested in my life, for my work, my personal life. You know, we got some good questions. So let's dive in. So I made 3 buckets. We have reading and book related questions, personal questions, and then archivist questions. There was a lot more archivist questions than the other 2, so I'm gonna put those at the end. I'm really hoping this video won't be super long, but if you guys get me talking, I will talk. All right, first question. My questions for you are on books and your reading habits / style. Do you have a favorite genre and a least favorite genre? If you are not enjoying a book, do you DNF, do not finish it, or finish reading the book? And how many unread books do you have on your bookshelves currently? Okay, there's a lot of sub-questions in there. Thank you for your question. So my favorite genre, oh, that's a good question. I would say historical fiction is my favorite genre, if you could not tell from being a history and archivist person. And I love a lot of sub-genres within historical fiction because you could have historical like fantasy fiction, which may even be one of my, I don't know, one of a top tier kind of favorite, but just like general historical fiction. I read a lot of historical fiction here on this channel. Least favorite genre, ooh. I guess I would say science fiction, sci-fi, and I'm not really into like aliens and like space and I guess the typical stereotypical sci-fi type material. I've read sci-fi and never really got into it, so I guess that would be my least favorite. Let me know what your guys' favorite genre and least favorite genre is down in the comments, because that would be interesting for me to hear from you guys. If I'm not enjoying a book, do I DNF it? I would say I have a pretty good judge of character of a book, whether it's based on the cover or the plot, or if I like read the first paragraph. So like recently, within the past few years, or at least having my channel and sharing the books I've read here, I've finished, I think, every book I've read recently. There are books that I have DNF'd that are coming to mind. The first one being, it's behind me. All right, these 2 books I like have distinct memories of not finishing. So the first one is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I want to read this book. I DNF'd it like over 10 years ago when I was in college, and probably many different circumstances, being like my reading level was not as robust as it is now, time, and just maybe not being interested in the book. But it's a widely acclaimed, wonderful piece of literature that I really want to read just for like that aspect. So I'm hoping to read this possibly later this year, since I want to read like harder books this year. And my other more recent DNF is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is book 5 of the Harry Potter series. And I did not read Harry Potter growing up. I think I read the first book and watched the first movie when I was like 9 when it came out or whatever, and just never was interested because I wasn't a reader growing up. It was not really something that was easy for me, and I just liked TV and music. So I recently got into reading Harry Potter like a few years ago and have read up through book 5, and the funny thing is I'm like over halfway through. Why don't I finish this? So all this controversy has come up with J.K. Rowling, and that has kind of skewed my approach to reading her books. So I think that's mainly why I stopped reading this, I think, a few years ago. I do want to finish it, and I would like to finish the series when I feel like it's right for me to do it. How many unread books do you have on your bookshelves currently? Well, this whole top shelf up here, and there actually are more down below, so I don't know. There's a lot of them. 20 to 50, that's a good range, right? So okay, next question. What was the book that got you into reading, either as a child and or got you back into reading as an adult? I love this question. I'm gonna answer both of them. Like I said, I didn't like reading as a child, and there are definitely like books we read in English class that I really remember, like Speak and Flowers for Algernon, The Lottery. These are just like iconic like books that you may have also read in elementary and, you know, high school. But for me, I feel like a book that I read my senior year of high school that really kind of got me on a path of like, I can be a reader is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I love that book and just realized I love dystopian literature, or just all things like dystopian and kind of critiquing like perfection and a perfect society, and I still love all of that stuff here today. So that book got me really like into reading and like, oh wow, I actually like don't hate reading. And then like I went on to read like 1984 by George Orwell and like all these other books like on my own time. And then once I went into school and eventually majored in history after doing a year of art and not sticking with that, I fell in love with history and reading more literature and have grown from there. Sub question of that is like, what book got me back into reading? Because there was definitely a period of my life where I stopped reading. Undergraduate, grad school, I just had to read whatever books were assigned to me, which was generally nonfiction. Historical books, definitely got burned out from reading because of that, so I wasn't reading. And I think it was like 2016, 2017, somewhere around there, when I was on Instagram and found out that Bookstagram is a thing and got really inspired from there. And the book that got me back into reading, I still have a copy of it, which is so funny, is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. You guys know I love thrillers. I guess that would be my second favorite genre after historical fiction, although that might be changing because I've read so many thrillers that they all seem the same. But I just love how fast and engaging thrillers are. Coming into reading with no like background or history of reading thrillers or like contemporary fiction, I was really hooked with The Woman in Cabin 10 and also Ruth Ware. And I think I've read all of Ruth Ware's books at this point, and she's also writing another one that'll come out this year, next year, which is really exciting. So yes, and I will always have this book because I remember getting this at Books A Million, my like local bookstore that's like a generic Barnes and Noble, and it was like in the bargain section, and I just bought it because I had heard good things about it, and it was history from there. Last reading question is, what is my favorite manga? It could be mine or George's, and this person is just getting into manga and needs some recommendations. Funny you ask, I just mentioned manga in my like last video, my planning video, of how I'm trying to read more manga this year, and I have not read very many at all. I would say Death Note would be kind of a very beginner friendly. It's very popular. I read it, I think, 10 years ago because apparently I was really into Death Note, but not any other manga back then, and George had copies of it, so I borrowed his and read it from him. And I think I've read a few of them. I don't know how many there are, but I'd never like finished the series, and I know George has copies that one day soon I can probably finish them. And now my only real recommendation now is Spy X Family, which I did mention in my planning video. So I have 3 volumes. I read the first one, which I really loved, and I'm hoping to read 2 and 3 next. And we also recommend, George said, I asked him like, what would you recommend to my viewers? He recommends Vinland Saga, which I've also, I think, mentioned here on this channel because we love the anime, which is on Netflix, and we want to read the manga as well. So it's basically about Vikings. So if you're into Vikings historical fiction but want to get into manga, it could be a good crossover introduction for you. So let me know if you've read Spy X Family or Vinland Saga. All right, we need some water, and I need to take my tea bag out. Okay, moving into personal questions, which are very interesting. First one is, do you have any tips on making friends as an adult? All my old friends have gone their separate ways and I find it really difficult to build a social circle again. I totally feel how you feel. It's so hard to not just make friends, but like socialize like as an adult, especially in a post-pandemic world. And as I've grown and now I'm like in my 30s, I reflect on my 20s and like college years, and it was just so easy to have a community and like people around you and friends, because that was like part of your experience being in school. And even if you didn't go to school, maybe you still had friends out of high school that you were connected with, or like work friends, but it just seems so much harder now. And for a period, I wasn't really trying to socialize or make friends because I was focused on other things. And I don't know if I answered this question's tips on making friends as an adult. Oh gosh, I don't even know how to answer that question. I feel like getting out and trying to do something geared to your interests, like maybe join a book club, it could be virtual or in person, or go to like a board game night, some kind of like community event where you are showing up and like doing something and you don't necessarily have to talk to anybody like out of your way, like it's kind of a structured thing that you're doing. That could be something that I would do if I am actually trying to find friends. There's also ways online you can make friends through apps that are just specific for like meeting platonic friends, not like dating apps. So that I've never tried, but I've definitely considered that. Online friends is also like worthy of friendship. Next question, do you ever quarrel with George? And if so, what about? How do you guys deal with it? So George and I are just like any other couple, and I have mentioned how I try and keep my relationship private, and I like to show him, but we don't show him too much beyond his boundaries. So I don't want to share too much out of respect to him and our relationship. But yes, we do fight or quarrel. I guess fight's a bad word. We have disagreements on things, and generally I would say it's because one of us is having a bad day. So one of us is just low patience, we're irritable, and it kind of rubs off onto our partner, the person that we love. And probably the other thing that I quarrel with him about is like cleaning and like chores and just like doing stuff around the house, which I feel like a lot of people can relate to. Let me know if I'm not the only one, because there's always that one person in a relationship who won't do the cleaning, right? Do you have any self-esteem issues? I've been struggling with that myself. Yes, 100% short answer, yes. I've definitely healed and improved on my self-esteem and became more confident over the years, and that's a whole nother video in itself. But I feel like I doubt myself a lot, especially here on YouTube, especially at my job, especially when I'm speaking up or sharing my own opinions. And I think the things that have gotten me through those issues and just helped me feel more confident is being transparent and sharing about it with my friends, but also online. I have a lot to thank to my online community here on YouTube, but also before YouTube, where on my blog, when I used to blog, and my like Instagram, and when I did my whole like online community. And I think having a good group of friends has helped me become more confident, and also having a public platform and sharing my opinions and experiences online has also made me feel like the things I struggle with, other people struggle with that too. And knowing like the things I struggle with is kind of like a normal part of being human, and everybody struggles with that, makes me just feel like, okay, I'm not the only one, I'm not that weird. We all as humans just struggle. And those are things that definitely help me remind myself that like maybe I shouldn't feel too bad about this specific thing, because I mean, at the end of the day, who cares? I hope that answers your question. Okay, next questions. If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you travel and why? Great questions. I feel like I have different tiers depending on either domestic travel or international travel. I feel like I really want to go to Edinburgh, back to Scotland again. Went there in 2019, and I just, whenever I get the opportunity to bring it up, I'm like, yeah, can we just fly there? I love this city, and I want to explore more of Scotland as well. So that would be, I guess, mid-tier, depending on budget. I feel like I could save up and do that. like big bucket list item is to go to Hong Kong, where my mom is from. One day I would love to do that, but there would definitely are circumstances around that. One being like, I want to go with my mom, so she needs to be able to go, and also the political situation in Hong Kong is always in the air, so I just want to feel comfortable doing that, and money and time, because it takes like a day to fly there, and then I would want to spend 2 to 3 weeks there, and right now that just doesn't seem possible with my work schedule and also my mom's schedule. So, but that's like top tier bucket list item. I need to go to my homeland, my mom's homeland at least, and connect with that part of my culture. And domestic travel, so George and I are trying to figure out like somewhere in the States to go to, like for vacation this year, and we've been thinking about Vermont. I've driven through Vermont when I've been up to New Hampshire, but I've never like done anything in Vermont, and I love New England. My dad's family is from Maine, so New England is like very much in my in my DNA, and I just love New England. So we might do Vermont. If any of you guys have traveled to Vermont, let me know. Where should we go? And I feel like Portland, Oregon is the other like domestic within the United States place that I would love to go to. I just gave like 4 answers. What are you playing on repeat on Spotify right now? Great question. I feel like Taylor Swift is always on repeat, and it's never just one album. I like to rotate in between her albums because I'm a relatively new Taylor Swift fan within the past year actually, so it's been a fun journey to explore through her past albums and just like go into that deep dive. So I have Reputation on repeat, I have Fearless on repeat, of course Midnights. I just kind of rotate between those lately. And a non-Taylor Swift is a band I think I mentioned before called Mama, which is a like rock, alternative rock band. We love their album Household Name, which came out last year, and then George showed me called Apollo Highway. So I've been having Apollo by Mama on repeat a lot too, in conjunction with Taylor Swift. All right, last personal question. Do you have fear or anxiety in making YouTube videos and worry of what friends think of it at first, etc., etc.? Kind of touched on this in a few questions ago, but yes, I absolutely have fear and anxiety posting and sharing my life here on YouTube for a multitude of reasons. One being just straight judgment and troll comments from the internet, which I feel like is understandable, but I know being a smaller channel, like the likelihood of me getting troll and mean comments is very low. So I have this fear of going like viral or having a video explode, and I just wake up one day and I have all this like hate in my YouTube comments, because that's very plausible. Like that is something that has happened to people and will happen to people. But I've moved through that, and there was a period until very recently where I was just afraid to check my YouTube comments, and because of this fear of getting these negative comments. But I've really made progress on that, which I'm very proud of myself for. So if you guys notice I don't respond to your comments, or I just don't respond to any comments, it's usually because I haven't checked my comments because I'm afraid to check my comments, or I'm having just a bad mental health episode. I don't necessarily care what my friends in real life or my family thinks, because they don't really care. My parents aren't really on social media, which I really appreciate, and the other parts of my family, you know, I'm not that close to them that they care, and I don't really post anything on like Facebook where my family is. All of my like close friends, they've accepted that I'm just an internet person because I've been posting on the internet for, I don't know, probably almost 20 years at this point, like with blogs and things. So people that are close to me I don't care about. I guess it's more like people like at work, or like people who don't know me, like personally. I used to have a lot of anxiety before I got the job that I'm in now, of people like my work finding out that I had an online presence or a website, or now a YouTube channel. But people just, you know, internet, TikTok, it's all like kind of normalized now, which kind of works to my advantage a little bit. Those are all the non-archivist questions, and I feel like I'm already at 30 minutes, so I'm gonna try and rapid fire through the archivist questions because there's a lot of them and I could talk forever. Thought about doing a part 2 for just archivist questions, but I don't know, that seems like too much work. I'm also gonna link the previous archivist question Q&A that I did, I don't know, a year, 2 years-ish ago, down in the comments, because a lot of the questions I got are repeat comments or they're very similar to something I've answered before. I'll still answer them, but I want you guys to know if you want to hear more responses to those things or just what my response was previously, go check out that video. First question, as an archivist, do you work with the public? What is your favorite aspect of your work? Do you conduct research? Yes, I do work with the public. That is the main kind of thing archivists do, is working with the public and providing access to collections and records for the public. So it is a very public job. I have to answer emails and have visitors come in and answer the phone and do interact with people, which I know some introverts might not like that. And I would say it's not like a customer service job where I'm dealing with the public and I'm doing customer service like the entire time. It's just one small aspect of my job. It doesn't take up the entire part of my time, but it is something I do have to do. And being an introverted person, I do have to set boundaries and allow myself to rest, especially after like a big day with meeting with somebody, just talking, being on the phone, things like that. My favorite aspect of my work is just the actual like collections management side of things, which is a core thing that archivists do. And since I work in a small archives, I have to do a lot of things because I'm basically acting like 5 different people. Like in a larger institution, you'd have departments and your position might be more specialized on one thing, but in a smaller archives, all the responsibility for like 5 to 10 people are going to be all on you. So it is good to gain experience in all those different areas, but it is a lot of work. So whenever I get to just process a collection, like physically organize it, label folders, anything involving just collection side of things, that's when I'm in my happy place, because I can just like put my headphones in, tune out the world, and focus on this project. Do you conduct research? So I don't do any research for myself. There is no like gratifying research unless I go down a rabbit hole because of something that's come up in the content that we're working with. I'm just a naturally curious person. I think any person that has majored in history or is an archivist or wants to become an archivist just is really interested in learning and just about the world. So any kind of topic that comes up, I'm always interested. So there's always something new to look at and learn about. So that's a great thing about my job. But any research I do usually is either on behalf of a client, because I do like genealogical research or just like historical research for people who can't come in and do their own. That's a service that we offer. Or if I have to write like an article for our newsletter or like a blog post or any kind of like thing I need to create and produce, I will do some background research into that, but I'm not doing any like PhD level researching. I'm definitely burned out from my grad school days of doing like research papers and like the whole thing that comes with research, so I am not complaining at all. Next question. I've been thinking about becoming an archivist and I'm hoping for minimal social interaction. How is the 9-to-5 in terms of dealing with other people? Great question. Your social interaction is going to really come down to where you're working and how large the institution is that you're working at. So for me, we're a small archives. We're a team of like 4 or 5 or 6 people who aren't in the office all at the same time. So generally, when I'm in the office, there's like 2 other people that I'm working with, maybe sometimes 1, and on Mondays it's just me. So I like that because I don't like being around a lot of people at work, but I still need human interaction to feel motivated and to focus. So if you are working in a big institution that has multiple departments, a big team, you're going to be more probably in like a office like atmosphere, and that's kind of the short answer. It really depends where you work and who you're working with. I'm grateful that the people I work with are all very chill. Generally the people in archives are introverted and keep to themselves, but I can only speak from my experience. What made you want to become an archivist, and do you have any specific materials you like handling the most? I go into why I became an archivist in my Q&A, my other Q&A video, so I'm just gonna link that, have you guys just go watch that maybe after this video if you're interested in my answer, because I don't want to spend another 10 to 20 minutes adding on to this video. But essentially I became an archivist because I have an interest in history and making history accessible to the public. Not like in a school atmosphere, but more in a public history way, either like through museums, library, archives, and that's my short answer. I want to have you guys, the mainstream, the public, know about history and look at these wonderful materials that exist, that have been made in the past. What materials do I like handling the most? That's really interesting. So I work at like a religious denominational archive, so a lot of the material I handle are church records or like church administration or like synodical, like the higher kind of like business side, organization side of the specific denomination that I work in. So of all of that, we also have like personal papers and private collections, which are my favorite. I think like letters or like correspondence are my favorite things to work with. I love paper. I'm a paper person. My boss and I like joke that she's the objects person and I'm the paper person, and we balance each other out. What's your favorite type of project to work on at the archives? I think I kind of answered this with like just processing. Give me a big disorganized mess of paper and I will put it in order for you, because I love that and that makes me happy. I love the feeling you get after you have a mess of stuff in boxes and then it's all perfectly organized at the end. What type of person do you think best fits into the role of an archivist? What skills or experience are needed to be an archivist, and what's my favorite part of the job, which I did explain. So I feel like it's hard to kind of answer the best type of person. I mean, you need to obviously love history, you need to be curious and a problem solver, you need to obviously have critical thinking skills and be able to put things that you're into context based on a global like scale, but also at a local like scale of the stuff that you're looking at. If you're trying to interpret what you're looking at, you do need to kind of be a people person, or at least not hate being around people, because you're gonna have to interact with the public. And I've worked with people who are not people that are not people. They just didn't like working with the public, and I don't know. As the person on the other side, I think if you're a researcher, you should have a good experience. Like in any customer service interaction, you as the client or the researcher wants to have a good experience. So I always try and just be nice to people, but even more I try and be very personable and like I care, because I generally do care about what they're researching and what they're doing. And I think if you, I mean, a lot of jobs you need to have credentials and a degree, and a lot of the stuff that you do when you're getting your degree and getting that experience is going to set you up for this job. So by the time that you are getting the job or qualified, you should have all of those other specific things like there. But in terms of like soft skills, the stuff that we don't learn at school, like organizational skills, you need to be able to like prioritize your time a lot, especially if you're handling a million different things under just you like I am, and just be very self-motivating, especially if you're working in a small place where there isn't a lot of oversight. Like I delegate all of my own projects to myself. I delegate it to our assistants. I just kind of have to manage everything, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So if you can't do that, you might flounder and get overwhelmed, which I have my seasons of being stressed and overwhelmed. Don't get me wrong. I'm looking at schools right now so I can get a master's in library and information sciences to become an archivist. Do you have any tips, insight to share that could help as I'm studying? Any suggestions on the types of places I should do an internship at? I do answer this question in more depth in my other video, so again, go watch that here, because I could talk about this for a very long time. And I think my biggest thing I always say is that you need experience to get a job in archives, no matter where you're coming from, because there's always going to be somebody else that you're going up against, and if they have more experience than you, they're probably going to get the job over you, and that's just how it is. I've been on the hiring side of like interns and just actual like staff, and I look at experience, I look at the resume and see, oh, do they have a basic understanding of what we do here? Are they gonna be easy to train? And am I gonna have to spend my entire shift holding their hand? And it's like, no shade to you guys or like the staff, but those are things that I think about when I'm hiring somebody, because I have my own stuff to do too. I want to be comfortable knowing that you can come on and, you know, be trained on the basic stuff of how the procedures work. But if you have a knowledge of archival theory, you have experience working in archives, you are a step above somebody who isn't. So get those internships, do the volunteer work, whether they're paid or unpaid. I understand it sucks. I've been there. I've never had a paid internship, and I just worked like waitressing jobs to kind of actually pay the bills, but it's helped me get to where I am, and that's a very kind of straight to the point answer. And of course, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I do believe that you can get a job no matter what level of experience you are. It just comes down to the place you're applying to and the applicant pool, essentially. I had a question for somebody, so they're a public historian and archivist as well, and also working in a denominational archive in Philadelphia. Awesome. You probably know what it's like, what I do here. Can you talk more about your job? That's a very open-ended question that I feel like I'm trying to answer a little bit here, or I have answered, but if there are any more specific questions about what I do, leave them down in the comments and I'd be happy to reply to your comment. As someone who's looking to apply to get their MLIS for archive work, I'd love to hear from you about being an archivist. How do you make it work knowing that there aren't as many full-time gigs, at least for entry-level jobs? And what's something you wish you knew about the job before doing this job? So for me, yes, that's also something that I try and share when I'm in a mentorship position, is that there aren't a lot of full-time jobs. There aren't even a lot of jobs, period, in archives, museum field, even probably library field. And with that said, it means that there's going to be a lot of competition. The job that you do get might not be full-time, so you might not be able to pay all your bills, and you might need to get a second job. So my first job in the professional line of archives was part-time, and I had a waitressing job to supplement my income. Thankfully, after about a year, I was promoted to full-time at that job and remained full-time until I resigned and took the job that I'm in now, which is still it's part-time. I work 30 hours a week here, and I was doing that for about 2 years, I think. It was during the pandemic, and I just was burned out and I needed just a break. I was still working the minimum to qualify for public loan forgiveness, which I also talk about that in my other video. It's very important to take into consideration your bills, but also your student loan situation if you do have to take out loans. So the current job I have is part-time, and I was doing that for about 2 years, and then Fridays were my free day where I would focus on YouTube, and I was trying to build like my freelance gig of doing photography on the side. So I was still trying to work full-time, but like in archives it was still part-time. And then last year I totally just went all in on doing archives work, because I started another part-time job at a historical society that my boss also runs, and now I'm making basically a full-time income between one job that's 30 hours a week and the other job, which is about 7 to 8 hours a week. And I've been doing that for about fully actually a year now. So I just want you guys to know you are gonna probably need 2 jobs unless you're really lucky to get a full-time job. But I see the beauty in that, because as I compare and contrast being full-time with just one job to now having 2 jobs, like I love having 2 part-time jobs, because like Monday through Thursday I focus on my main gig, and then Fridays is like my escape to my other job because there's less responsibilities and I can just kind of do my own projects there, and it's a good break. But I'm also gaining more skills working at 2 different places at the same time that I might not get in one place. Some other questions about what I wish I knew about the job before doing the job. So definitely like nothing really specific in terms of like technical skills. I mean, there's always going to be technical things I need to learn, and there's enough workshops and like free resources and like paid classes available out there that I can like pick up a class to learn something new. Like I took a class on electronic archiving a few years ago through my other job, which was really interesting because I didn't really learn about that in school. There's just other things you pick up from like having to do it, like digitization and like scanning and content creation and social media. There's so many different things that you need to probably do, especially if you're wearing many hats like me, that you just kind of like learn on the job. And I enjoy that. I mean, like I said, you need to be very curious and interested in learning to be in this field. And it's never a dull moment. I'm always learning something new, and that keeps my brain happy. And I think the other thing I wish, not necessarily that I knew, but maybe that I was more prepared for, was like working as a loan arranger, working by myself and having like the skills to manage my time, manage my projects, but also just like self-care things, not burning myself out, not putting too much pressure on myself. And these are things I'm actively working on now, like outside of my job, behind the scenes, but I could go on and on about this kind of stuff. If I had to pick another vocation, what would it be? So I think I've been asked if I would be an archivist for the rest of my life, or if there's another like career that I would ever want to do. So, I mean, in a past life, a lot of you guys probably don't know this because you found me through YouTube, but I wanted to be a blogger. I wanted to be like a business coach, just a coach, like an online coach. And then I wanted to be a photographer. I was trying to make those things full-time so I could quit my archivist job. This was like years ago. And then around the time of the pandemic, I just had a lot of come to Jesus moments. I'd rather have archiving be my main source of income and my main job because it's stable. I have a stable income. I can show up and then check out. Like when I get home from work, I don't bring work home with me, and that's really important for me to have those boundaries. But I'd love to be able to work towards being an artist or just like something, make some kind of income or fulfillment from my art, because before I became an archivist, I wanted to be a photographer, and I was an artist, like a little art kid, and art school kind of got me jaded because I didn't want to have to get a full-time income using art. Creativity and the art world, it's so hard to monetize it, and with capitalism and everything, again, another tirade I won't go down, it was just easier for me to do archiving as my main source of income, and then I can do art on the side. But I'd love to work up to the point where I can pay off my student loans, maybe drop down to more part-time archives work, and just have either an income from all of these small things, but having art being one of them, or content creation, if that even will exist 5 to 10 years from now. But I always want to be in archives doing work, whether I'm doing part-time or eventually retiring and volunteering. We have a lot of volunteers that come in, and I definitely want to volunteer my time to help out at an archives or historical society in the future when I'm older. Last question, which I think I touched on, is what are the skills that you need to have to become an archivist for someone who's in a field not really related to archival works and having a bachelor's degree in history? So I get a lot of comments from a lot of you guys that say that maybe you have just a bachelor's in history and you want to get into the archiving field. What do I recommend you do? So a lot of jobs are going to want you to have a master's degree or an equivalent of experience. So we can put this into two different kind of scenarios. So for me, I have a bachelor's in history, but I also have a master's in applied history, where I also was trained to become an archivist, like under my university archivist, where I worked in the university archives. So that was a combo of having a graduate degree and experience, and that worked out for me. Another scenario could be you just have a bachelor's in history degree, but you're gonna need a lot of experience, minimum 3 years probably, to even have a shot at getting a job, which sounds kind of doomy. I don't want to dissuade you guys from pursuing your dreams, but like I said, experience is really important. And the reason why I think jobs want you to have a graduate degree is because we do learn a lot of things, at least I did in grad school, that has helped me like acclimate and just kind of transition into this job and know what I'm doing when I show up. So those are just two different scenarios. And I know some people can go get their MLIS and then they get a job right out the gate. That's not my experience. Maybe they are able to get an internship or an externship, or they have their own experience and other kind of, you know, areas that kind of relate to that. So, but if you're somebody who has nothing related to the field except a degree in history, I would say try and gain experience for either by finding an entry-level job, which you may or may not, or getting experience through volunteering or an internship if you're like recently graduated. A lot of like fellowships and things like that are only open to people who have like graduated within the past 1 to 2 years. Or I would suggest getting a master's degree in public history, archiving, your master's of library and information science. So that was a lot. I feel like this video is going to be an hour long. Hope you guys aren't mad. Hope you're able to just listen and stay engaged this entire time. Thank you again for submitting all of these wonderful questions. Again, if you have any follow-up questions to anything I've said, please leave a comment and I can reply to your comment there. But I'd love to do more Q&As in the future. Let me know by giving this video a like if you liked it, if I should do more, or just comment. I don't know. It's great to connect with you guys, so I feel like these questions and answering videos help me feel like I'm not just on the one side of the screen, like there are actually people over there that care about what's going on behind the scenes. So thank you, friends, and thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next video.